many of us here have spent even up to several years, myself included, hearing about the lies, the distortions, all the problems that have gotten us to this point. So I'd like tonight, if we can focus on where we are today and where we can, how we can help and what we can do moving forward to solve the problem.
Right.
So actually, I think it's really important for the commission not to get involved in the politics of the matter. So we're not going to be talking about politics. We're going to stick with the documentation that has been presented. Much of it's been to the town board already, but we're going to stay out of politics. You know, what I'd like to say first is somebody told me that running for office had made me really brave. And I got to tell you, this commission deserves to be commended because you've opened the door to look at this situation again, knowing how political it is. This commission has a lot of homework to do. This is probably the most serious environmental problem that's facing our town today, combined with the municipal water system. So we know how it went down with the last commission, or under Alex Bolito. Here we are again. Thank you for opening the door. I really appreciate that.
And I can say, being part of that commission, I'm happy with that.
You know, I guess we should really just start off saying, well, Church Road, what is it? And actually, I made a mistake. I mentioned that 5 different environmental professionals had weighed in on this. There's actually been 6.
Wow.
We got HydroQuest, Paul Rubin, CT Mails, James McIver, PVE, James Conrad, Quest, that's actually another environmental company, Michael O'Rourke. Mid-Hudson Geosciences, which is Catherine Beinkaffner. And we have even former WEC member Bob Wolf, who he's got an extensive background on this.
That's correct.
You know, there's been a lot of commentary and stuff from the supervisor, and we even have documentation from town board members that acknowledge we can prove where this stuff came from, and we know it's contaminated. And we also can include Aaron Moran in the scope of people that actually have really taken a stand to say what this is and what we need to do. So, you know, when we go through the details and everything, the next question is going to be, well, how do we get this done? How do we get this remediated? And really the way you go about it is to enforce the stricter Woodstock laws. Because one thing that seems to have been a misperception is, you know, is it contaminated? Is it not contaminated? Did Plan E remediate the problem? Did it not remediate the problem? And the fact of the matter is Plan E, it didn't do the job. I've tried to get documentation to show that contaminants have been remediated from the site. I've tried to get that information from the town of Woodstock. I can't get it. You know, that's known as clearance testing. Vincent Mao, actually, he taught me that term just a short little while ago.
And I made a separate request, just so you know, that was not responded.
Yeah. And then the code enforcement officer, he's got to reissue the violation notices for what the site currently represents. I think by the time we go through all the documentation, there's not really going to be any wiggle room to really make a determination of what exists on that site. Estimated 200 truckloads of material went into that site. The professionals have classified a large amount of that material to be unrecognizable material, so it actually looks like dirt. But it's not necessarily dirt. Then we get to, well, if we get the zoning officer, code enforcement officer, and we start this process, who's going to pay for it? The property owner has to pay for it. If we go through the proper legal process, the cost of remediation gets borne by the property owner. If the property owner won't undertake the remediation himself, part of the process is the town can go to the courts and get an order. And the town could then hire a contractor to go in there with a court order and remediate that site. The cost of that would then get added to the tax bills of the property owner. There's a lot of citizens that are really worried about, well, who's going to pay that if Conigliaro won't. You know, the town's got to pay all this money to remediate that site. Once it gets put on the tax bill, if the property owner doesn't pay the tax bill, after, it's either a year or 2 years, Ulster County makes the town whole. And then they go into a foreclosure action against the property owner. And if it's properly remediated, that is then a property that will have a resale value so the county can recoup some of the money. What's the cost of remediation? I don't know that anybody really knows that. There's going to be some further studying that has to be done on it. In the lawsuit that the property owner had against Joey Carolus, the property owner mentioned $800,000 as part of his suit for trying to recover damages. $800,000 to remediate. Brinier and Larios, the town's engineer, they gave a range of $600,000 to $1 million. So, you know, it's a sizable number.
So you're saying that the county would make the town whole by putting a lien on the property?
Yeah. Well, they would put a lien and go into foreclosure on it for not paying taxes. You know.
We also have to take into consideration with the cost, not just the work, but hiring the engineer, hiring legal.
Yeah, all of that's going to come into play. There's going to be legal expenses and everything. And, you know, when you know what the site represents and it's in the aquifer, I believe it was Paul Rubin at one of the screenings of Chris Finley's film at the library. Paul Rubin said, you know, he's been in the business for 30 years. He said he's never seen a municipality side with the illegal dumper. Don't let Woodstock be the first one. Where are we? The Amy's filed a suit because they had no choice to invalidate the Plan E permit. And then they followed up with a second suit and named the town in that. And the reality is, in my opinion, is without any doubt, the town of Woodstock waged a legal defense against Pam and Frank Amy that helped the illegal dumpers, and that's why this stuff is still in our aquifer. I mean, that really is the short story when you think about it. And I thought for sure when Pam and Frank filed that suit against the town to invalidate Plan E, I thought for sure somebody would have come to their senses because so much documentation already existed and would have said, you know what, we're headed in the wrong direction. We know what this is. Settle that suit with some sort of an order and move to remediation. It didn't happen that way. And then it was, I don't know, 6 months later, the Amy's had to file a second suit for different type of suit. And then it was, and still, the town hired attorneys. I guess their insurance maybe paid for it, although maybe not, to defend against Pam and Frank Amy that helped the illegal dumpers.
So my concern also about Plan E is they only removed 4 truckloads, but they did move a considerable amount of property. Yes, that Bob, I remember Bob was there and we saw it, into a berm that now sits over the stream, and that stream is, and Julia can attest to this, is...
As a matter of fact, the most sorry,
Right.
I didn't mean to do this, but I should say this very quickly. The test results you sent me, the most recent ones, do show
Today.
do show a level still at pump 1, but I'm wondering if they sent the other results back because
I don't, that doesn't even...
Because-
We need to get
because
that.
of what you're
I'm
saying.
sorry,
The stream We had a,
I really have to control this because we
Okay.
have so much, look at what we have to get through.
I know.
Okay, so what I'm saying is that when we're doing drinking water source protection program, we met with the engineers there, and Mark can attest to this, that they said that the stream as well as the aquifer are equally impacting our water. It depends on the kind of weather we're having,
Exactly.
what happens. So now that we have this berm of not dirt sitting over the stream, it's even more of a concern than it was before.
You know,
Because it wasn't there before.
when you think about it, like Sawkill goes up and then another stream cuts off. You know, so it forms a Y, the two waterways. And 10 Church Road is in the center of it. If you wanted to pollute the streams and the aquifer with construction and demolition,
Couldn't be a better
you
site.
couldn't pick a more opportune spot. You know, Plan E moved the bulk of the material over to another part of the property, and there's a short distance to the bank, and then it goes right down to another water.
Marcel, is one of the things that we're asking for, like right now, we know we're getting these reports on the town wells, but we're not getting reports about more localized contamination closer to that part of the aquifer. Is that something that we want to have as part of this remediation plan?
Well, I would think that part of the drinking water source protection program would be to do some sort of testing up through that entire
Which
aquifer
we have talked
in
about.
time.
Right, Julie? Yeah, so we're talking about doing that all the way to Willow.
Oh, yeah, the whole watershed.
The whole watershed, because all of that aquifer and the streams
Yeah.
affect our water. Yeah, it's a concern. I mean, this is what I'm not sure. I mean, I know that when we wrote the resolution to bring it to the town board, it was for quarterly testing of the water.
That's right.
But they didn't do that, correct?
No.
And
they
that's
never-
the quarterly testing of the Amy's water
Right.
and maybe the surrounding.
That didn't go forward because at the time, some people knew, well, we're not allowed to spend money on private property. Coincidentally, the town of Woodstock actually did spend money for engineering on the 10 Church Road site.
Correct.
And actually, I discovered that through Freedom of Information law.
So
Right.
let's move on to where are we today?
Well, so what is the material and where we are? I mean,
Yeah.
actually a little bit of a history because, you know, we're nearly 6 years down the road on this.
And what was the estimate on how long it would take to filter down into the water supply?
Somebody
Like
said
10.
10 years.
4 to 10.
4 to 10, is that what you said? You know, we don't really know. But what is interesting is the dumping started in late 2019.
Right.
And on May 21st of 2020, so maybe 6 months, the New York State DEC actually did a report, Solid Waste Program C&D Waste Composition Report. Now, clean fill does not include C&D debris or glass or any of that stuff. The DEC's own report has 4.8% asphalt, 3% concrete and glass, 1.7% coal, slag, and ash, 1.4% brick, a fraction of wood, 10.91% of materials that are not natural dirt. That was known in early 2020, and it came from the DEC.
And how much did they test?
I believe they did just one sample,
Okay.
And they did a visual, remember the visual?
and that's where some of the confusion comes in. You know, the DEC actually, their standard is a visual analysis, so they kind of looked at it, and, you know, it looks like dirt. And sure, they would have seen some concrete, ash, or, you know, brick and stuff like that. I don't believe anybody with the naked eye, whether a DEC officer or not, can see PFOA or semi-volatile organic compounds or any of these contaminants. But the DEC, they have this little thing, you know, we'll go look at it, maybe we'll see some stuff, maybe we won't. They don't test for contaminants, and they make their determination. But the DEC's threshold for this stuff is, under the DEC laws, they will allow a person or anybody to have up to 5,000 cubic yards of uncontaminated, recognizable, non-compostable C&D waste.
Right.
The environmental professionals have deemed it largely unrecognizable, contaminated, and it is non-compostable. So the DEC, in my opinion, really dropped the ball.
It's slightly under the amount that they're saying that Tenter's Road was slightly under the,
Yeah.
and that's how they can.
So they kind of wiggled out of it, and I often wonder.
Given our past
Right.
history with the DEC, and I
Can't
have this, yeah, I'm assuming that they will not be the agency that we're seeking help from.
Yeah.
The New York DEC, as far as,
Excuse me 1 second, Marcel, I just want to add one thing. The DEC group that made that visit, looked at it, was the solid waste group, not the environmental group.
Oh, I never knew.
So they looked at it through solid waste regulation eyes.
So that's a key fact.
Do you know
Did
those
we
guys
ever,
from?
did we ever,
Did you know any of that team? Anybody that was on the solid waste?
The inspectors, I don't remember the names.
oh, so that's the argument that the town board used for not taking action, because the DEC solid waste engineer said that it was not a problem, as opposed to their environmental engineer.
well, I don't think it was quite like
No,
that.
I mean, but that was one of the issues. The letter that went out to the public was the DEC said it's fine.
And actually, one of the DEC's own communications conflicted itself, because it mentioned that they had reviewed some test results, and there were exceedances.
Right, but again, that's where the amount came in.
Right.
Because if there's exceedances and it doesn't,
Whether you have the amount or not, though, it has to be uncontaminated.
that is true.
The exceedances make it contaminated.
So at any
And it has to
point,
be recognizable, and it's largely unrecognizable.
was there an environmental agent of the DEC who came to do tests? And
I believe the only test that they did was this
Was
soil
the
test
one-
analysis.
Mhm,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, Bob, can I ask you a question, because you deal with this daily? Is it hard to get somebody from the environmental group out to do a test?
That's hard to answer. It sort of depends. And following that initial inspection by the DEC, Alex, Aaron, and myself talked to them, and then we had sent them analytical results that were collected sometime after that point or just before that point. So they did receive the analytical results, but that inspection was, as I
That was
said,
it.
a solid waste column.
So in terms of their own inspection,
Wow, I did not know that.
So,
That's
you know, the
amazing.
fact of the matter is, we don't know why the DEC seems to have dropped the ball. Maybe because they shuttered Corollas, and that material left the Corolla site and came up here, and maybe they have a responsibility to make sure that didn't happen. We don't know. They just didn't want to get involved in it, apparently. Maybe in their standards, it's like, well, it's only 200 truckloads. We deal with sites that have thousands of truckloads. We don't know. But the fact of the matter is, the DEC, in their communications, certainly my opinion, is they've conflicted themselves. We know it's contaminated. We know there's a large percentage of it is unrecognizable. This is all heavily documented in communications that have been sent to the town board. You know, it is what it is, and 6 different environmental professionals have pretty much weighed in very similarly about what this site is. You know, aside from the materials that the DEC did identify, you got PFOS, PFBA, chromium, DDT, and lead. When you get going through some of the soil test results, there's actually a lot of other things that are in that material that don't cross the threshold. So back to the cost of this. You know, if the town goes forward with this and fronts the money, here's what's going on right now. For years, I don't know how long it's been building, the town of Woodstock apparently has accrued over $3 million surplus fund. My understanding, and you know, I haven't been attending the budget hearings, is it is underway now, potentially, to somehow offer the taxpayers a sizable reduction in their tax bill and spend down the surplus substantially, maybe down to $1 million. And what I think this commission really needs to do, I think it would be a very big help, is go through all this material that I'm presenting to you today. Come to your own conclusions, what this site represents and whether it needs to be remediated or not. And if your determination is that it needs to be remediated, I think the Environmental Commission needs to send a memo to the entire town board. Hold on to that surplus, because it may be necessary to move forward. Because if they get it spent down to $1 million, and then you've got $1 million remediation to do the right thing, there goes your surplus, and the town is vulnerable.
And that doesn't include water treatment.
And that water treatment for the municipal water, that's a whole other problem. So the town of Woodstock right now has two potentially huge problems on their table. So although I've disagreed with having a $3.4 million surplus,
In this case, it's.
In this case.
now that we know where we're at as a community and the environmental problems we have, the town board shouldn't dare spend that until we know what we're doing with these things.
That's very.
Hang on to money.
That's good.
Otherwise, you end up in a situation, you don't have the money to fund the remediation. And the thing is, the town would have to front the money, but you've got to get it back. But if you don't have the money to front it,
Right.
and you're not able to wait to get it back, what are you going to do? You
Right.
need to have the financial resources to pull this off.
The
right
decision to
now-
draw down the surplus has been suggested, but it has not been voted on.
My understanding is it's been widely talked
Laura?
about.
Okay, so Bill, Supervisor McKenna did roll out his budget. He presented it to the press and the town board. We have spent, this week we started to have meetings. So your letter, my recommendation is that, I know you have a meeting a week from tonight. My recommendation is that if you're going to send a letter from the WEC, you should do it within the next 2 weeks, because in early November, very early November, the board is going to have a vote to decide what to do. Are we going to
That's very important.
to approve the preliminary budget? But what I also want to tell you is there's a lot of discussion amongst the board members about the concern with the drawdown plan. So I can tell you, we don't have 5 people saying, oh, let's go do it. You're having 4 people saying, same thing Marcel says, we may need this money, we shouldn't be too quick. So approving the budget will take a quorum of 3, and at the moment, I don't think we have a quorum of 3 who will approve that drawdown. But again, the voting doesn't happen until early
Now's
November.
the time,
Now's the
that's
time.
important. Thank you, Laura, that's very helpful.
Timing is
That's
critical.
very, very helpful.
A little more about what we know about the material on the site. We looked at the DEC's soil analysis. Another great document that you guys have is this HydroQuest report from August of 2020.
Oh, I read that, yeah.
And this is the remarkable thing about this situation. We are now nearly 6 years down the road. And in the first paragraph of the HydroQuest report from August of 2020, it says a significant portion of this fill is construction and demolition debris waste material brought in from outside of Ulster County, New York. How much clearer did it have to be to know what the town of Woodstock needed to do? August of 2020. And here we are. It's been allowed to sit up there, and you know, it's leaching into the ground all the time.
We saw the plastic and the pipes and all
Yeah.
of that when we went to look at it. It was horrendous.
There's another report, September 2020, actually from CT Mail Associates, written to Vincent Conigliaro. That was his own consultant. And, you know, on page 2, it talks about this stuff and the need to comply with the New York State standards, and that it needs to be tested and everything. I would say that that report wasn't as strong as any of the other reports, but look who it was prepared for. That was prepared for Vinnie Conigliaro. Maybe a paycheck was involved in that. You know, I don't know how long we want to spend here tonight, and I don't think we can go through every one of these reports page by page, which is why I provided a paper copy in case you want to flip through it and notice something that you specifically
The
want to
kinds
ask
of
about.
things that are most important to me are things like your recommendation for us to tell the board how important it is not to draw down the surface until we know what this is going to cost.
Yeah.
That's, you know, we need, how can we help in the best possible way? Because, you know, short of reading through this whole thing tonight, I don't think we can know all the actions you would like us to take.
Well, I think because of the critical nature of the financial aspect,
Yes, exactly.
that's something, as Laura said, you want to get on it right away.
Right, and we don't know the extent of what this is going to cost us,
No,
because
That's right.
we don't know how deep they're going to have to go.
that's
We
right.
just don't. I mean, we're going to have to, Beth, I'm going to throw you out here. I talked to Beth a long time ago about this, and we're like, we don't know how quickly it's going to drop down. Do you remember? This was years ago.
So it would slump down towards the stream.
You know, and how long is that going to take? It's going to happen, but we don't know when. And how deep do we have to dig? Do we have to dig a foot below what was left there? Because is
How
that
much is
enough?
it, how much
In
has leached
5
into the
years,
soil?
or is it 2 feet? And
Yeah.
that makes it 400 truckloads. I just,
So, you know, and here's the thing, because you really don't know how deep are you going to have to dig. And I'm not sure, I'm not an environmental professional. But it wouldn't surprise me. I know a lot more than I did 2.5 years ago. Actually, I got to tell you, John Conrad from PVE, that guy has literally spent a few hundred hours on the phone with me,
Oh,
teaching me all about this stuff.
wow.
So, you know, John Conrad is one of the heroes in the ballpark. And I'm hoping you guys are going to be the town heroes. Because I think when you go through all this, there's not going to be any question.
Lori, and Joe and Ken, do you have any questions before we continue?
Yeah, you said early on that the code enforcement officer must reissue what's necessary for the, so is that time pressing, and what can we do to help that happen?
That's a good point.
Well, I mean, I certainly have tried to get him to do it. He is capable of bearing intense pressure, and he hasn't. I have a very critical opinion of him. It's interesting because one of the violations was for an unstable slope. The other violation that was written was for a violation of the solid waste law. As far as I can tell, the town of Woodstock never wrote a violation for a violation of the zoning code, which does not allow a dump or a landfill or anything.
you're right.
And
Yeah.
that was before this happened as opposed to the other.
It should have been written at the same time.
Yeah, it should have.
So, what's interesting about that is I've asked the code enforcement officer for determinations. That's where you say, I'm requesting a determination, does this site comply with the law. He's provided the determination about the Plan E, was, said whatever he said, that's not what I asked for. He's provided the determination about the solid waste law that according to the town's engineer, there's no problem there. He will not provide me the determination regarding the zoning law. And here's why he won't do that, I believe. If he writes me a determination and says it complies with the zoning law, I can challenge that at the zoning board of appeals. Doesn't want to write that determination. The solid waste law you can't challenge at the zoning board of appeals. That's why Jamie's had to file an Article 78. But if he would, and it's widely accepted in the world, when somebody asks for a determination, you provide the determination. Our code enforcement officer will not give me that determination. I believe because he knows if he says it's compliant, I'm going to the zoning board of appeals and challenge it.
Laura, did Canigliaro ever pay for Plan E?
That's a good question. I don't have firsthand information. I know I did see the building permit, and I saw, as I recall,
No, I know there was a permit.
as I recall, the cost on it was $200,000. I do not know what he did or didn't pay, but I do know in a conversation with him, he did say he had to pass the hat amongst relatives to pay what he had to pay, otherwise lose the property. But I don't have facts of what exactly he did
He
pay.
actually, the cost of the engineering that the town fronted, which I wish I could get the town front engineering for my business. It doesn't, it's illegal. Canigliaro did reimburse the
He
town.
did, okay.
Just very recently.
Okay.
He waited,
Interesting.
he waited
That's what I was
till like
wondering.
that. Yeah,
Interesting.
it all
Because I
coincided.
saw the email from Butch
Yeah.
to Bill asking why he's waiving
Yeah.
all of these things,
Right.
which is illegal, but that's, I'm not getting there.
Yeah.
Marcel, can I ask Marcel one question, please?
Well, we're not really supposed to take
Okay.
questions from
Sure.
the audience, or questions from the audience.
I respect that.
Marcel,
Yeah.
I don't see it in the table of contents. Are there any actual lab reports in here?
There are.
Yeah.
Let me tell you where they are. I find my index.
Soil sample.
It's one of, there's, actually, I believe it's
Quest, I just opened to it, page
Yeah.
45.
Oh, lucky you.
Oh, I
uh,
almost got
Page
it.
Page
45.
page
45.
45. Actually, yeah, all the pages I numbered them, so you
Thank you, I appreciate that.
I
That
can't
is the
believe
biggest-
what you've done. This is unbelievable.
I worked for a lawyer for a while. A little while, 16 years.
I knew there was more to the
I
story.
started when I was 12 years old. Taught me a lot.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, did you find that?
It's
Yeah.
in here, it's on page 48.
Yeah. What page was it, 48?
48.
So,
And so, yeah, because I was looking at some of this and then I was comparing it to some of the other stuff that we had from back in 2023 and 2022. And yeah, there's chemicals in here that should not be.
well, and that's the thing. So some of the chemicals actually exceed the allowable threshold, but there seems to be a whole host of other chemicals that are below the threshold. Well, a lot of it is a component of construction and demolition debris, and you don't want it anyhow.
Right.
And you sure don't want it in your aquifer. And every one of them further deems the material contaminated, and why it has to be removed. It's, when you get going through this stuff, when you all have homework now, it's only 160 pages or whatever.
It takes a lot longer to put it together than to read it.
That's
So
true.
thank you, Marcel.
Yeah, I've spent the better part of 4 days putting this and organizing it.
And the better part of how many years.
Well, and actually, that is the thing. You know, the other thing that we have a supporting deposition from Bill McKenna. He acknowledges that when he visited the site, there were 10 or 15 piles of dump dirt that contain chunks of concrete and asphalt.
So if this is relevant to the solution, then continue on, but if it's not, let's
Well,
move on.
It's part of the,
I know it's part of the
Yeah.
very sad history.
yeah.
The PVE tests,
Yeah.
they did
What page?
page 54.
Yep. So those test results actually, those results came out of 4 test pits that were dug, I believe it was either late December of '22, or maybe January of 2023. Those were 4 test pits that were dug on the Church Road site, and they took samples. Apparently wasn't necessarily properly supervised, didn't follow proper testing, gathering protocol, but it still tested contaminated. They also, they just didn't follow what John Conrad had suggested.
So there's things to compare.
Yeah, so, I mean, this packet of stuff that they gave you is all documentation. I think when you go through it all, you're going to easily conclude without any doubt what the site represents, and it's got to be remediated. You know, there's letters in here from the Environmental Commission from before. The Environmental Commission did great work last time around. It all kind of seems to have just gotten dismissed and pushed aside.
We asked a lot of
Plan use
times.
permit was just nonsense. So, you know, everything pretty much in this packet is the documentation you need to form an opinion about what the site represents. We talked about the method to get it done, the finances, the process, and everything. That is something that the Environmental Commission really needs to put pressure on the town board. I don't think there's any mystery to it, but here's where it gets really interesting. So the Amy's, you know, 250,000, maybe 260,000, whatever, $250,000 in round numbers. They ended up in a position where I believe they could no longer sustain the legal battle financially. So it seemed like they got pushed into a corner and they had to give up.
So they settled because of finances.
They couldn't sustain it anymore. And it happened at like the real critical juncture where we were like, here's the home run. January 26th of 24, I mentioned previously, was when we got access to the 10 Church Road site and we dug test holes. And with my eyes, I can tell you what I saw. Demolition debris, bricks, block, asphalt, all kinds of stuff. We were waiting for a document to be generated by John Conrad for that. And that really was going to prove, because there's been a debate, you know, well, the DEC says it's okay, certain town officials are saying it's okay, did this Plan E remediated it, did it remediate it, did it not? The officials say it did. That day in November was going to be the home run. And then I couldn't get the report because they had to move towards settlement.
And so we can't give that report to anybody?
Well, interestingly enough, I've got the report.
All right.
And, you know, I've tried to be kind by saying if anybody believes Plan E remediated that site, it's a bold-faced lie. I could have really used some other language. But the fact of the matter is, this is a report that is about the results of the test holes that were dug in November of 2024. I think this establishes beyond any reasonable doubt that there is a lot of demolition debris still hanging out there. This is, to me, was the home run. It was gonna make or break the case.
Is this something that we can use now for another home run, or the home run's over?
I want
Is
you
the
to
game
use
over?
that.
No, we can use this.
You can use that.
Okay.
You know,
Because it's public
and just to be clear, Pam and Frank Amy are not allowed to talk about this.
You know that.
They are quiet. This did not come from Pam and Frank Amy.
So this is information we can use.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
Marcel, can you summarize?
Uh,
Are you able to?
Four test pits.
Marcel, how do I get a copy of that?
I can email it to you. I don't have an extra copy. Yeah, and there's some other results too, but this one, there's no question. And that's, you know, when I got on that site and I looked down at the ground through the sparse grass, I could see demolition debris. And, you know, when they first dumped that stuff, it might have been, you had a pocket of really bad stuff and you covered it over with some good fill. Well, now they've moved it around yet again, so it's all mixed in. It's all got to go there. So that there, to me, at this point, is the new and critical document.
So we can use this and use him.
I'm sure
Yeah.
if
We're
anybody has any questions.
Oh, thank you.
So, I don't know what else I can provide you with. If you have questions, I'm more than happy to answer them.
So,
If you have questions at a later time,
what are your
bring me back.
suggestions for how we can use this material
Well, I think
for
that
our efforts?
that determines what remains on the site now. And that,
Okay,
that should compel,
so this test, this inspection and sampling was just done a year ago,
not quite.
not quite a year, yeah.
So,
After they supposedly remediated the site, so that's what's
That
critical about
is the
it.
thing that was missing, because there was always a debate, well, so-and-so says Plan A remediated it.
Right, moving it over to the other
But
side of the property.
And
was
those
all
of
we
us who
needed
have
to
been deeply engrossed in this thing all along, we
Yeah.
knew.
do.
And that's the thing, you know, Joey Carolus' facility, I mean, it's kind of ironic, Plan E was a sort and sift operation. Well, Joey Carolus sorted it and sifted it down on 212, and he brought the finer
With
stuff.
a hammer mill.
Oh, yeah, he brought the finer stuff to Church Road, the bigger stuff he took to Goat Hill Road, and some of the other stuff went down on Fell Quay. And actually, I have the opportunity to be on that little crowded road, and that road is built on demolition debris.
what scares me is how many other places in Woodstock potentially
So
deliver.
actually, that is another discussion.
I know.
Because he was selling it as landscape.
Here's
material.
what everybody needs to realize. There are companies out there that sort and sift different kinds of material. And they're peddling this stuff. And it looks like dirt. There's a lot of contaminated material out there.
Yeah.
Carolus is not the only one that was doing it. He was the local biggest offender. But it's a big problem, big problem.
So if you were king of the world, what would you do first, second, what would your steps be?
Letter first.
The letter about the financial aspect, you want to get that
That's
out of the
number
way.
one, yep.
I think that once your commission is in agreement that this site represents something that needs to be remediated, a powerful letter to the town board, and that last document I gave you,
Yes.
that's what it is today. That's what still exists on that property. Even if it's not contaminated, which we know it is,
We know it is.
it's still illegal fill. It's still a violation of the solid waste laws. It's still a violation of the zoning code. That doesn't expire. And, you know, from a legal aspect, some people say, well, we can't go back to the the solid waste violation. But you can, because the lawsuit was Pam and Frank against Conigliaro with the town named. The town got released. So it went into settlement, and I believe you can go back to the solid waste law as well as the zoning code.
Because it hasn't been released from that.
Yeah, we'd have to talk to somebody about that.
Yeah, that's a legal thing. But the section of the zoning law that does not allow landfills, that's never even had the violation rule. So that, for sure, opens the door.
Okay, so then, any other changes or suggestions, recommendations you have for us?
Stay strong. Work diligently, because I've had them coming at me.
I know.
Would it be a good idea for the town to hire a hydrologist?
Oh,
So
that's-
actually,
That's going to be part of it.
Actually, and that's kind of an interesting thing there, because when you look at 10 Church Road and you look at the municipal water system, by the town not hiring their own hydrologist, that was a big mistake.
Oh, yeah.
You know? And the other thing that never happened, despite all of this information, the town of Woodstock never challenged the DEC.
Never.
I put in a FOIL request for a document where the town of Woodstock
They wrote
challenged the
letters, but it was
DEC.
never a solid challenge.
I can't even get a letter.
There were a couple.
You know, I got a few emails,
Yeah.
but they never, it should have been the entire town board signs onto a letter. This is the problem. We're challenging this, and these are the
What
reasons.
about the role of the Attorney General? Because I know that there were letters written, I know that
You know,
Aaron was a signer, a signatory, and I know that Anula also privately wrote letters to CKG. Is that an avenue to pursue?
I don't think you're gonna get anywhere with the Attorney General, because number one, I don't believe the Attorney General's got the guts to throw the DEC under the bus. But the fact of the matter is, the town of Woodstock does not need New York State, and we don't need the Attorney General.
No, I'm just
We've got
wondering, which avenues do you think
Yeah.
are the most productive for us to pursue?
I believe challenging the DEC at this point will only bog you down.
Right, right.
I believe following up with the Attorney General any further,
Isn't gonna do
which
much.
I've actually recently foiled for any new communications.
Bob?
It's not going to be fruitful.
And I know there's no public discussion, but I mean, there's one other technical thing that could be done that I could share now or share in private when we're done that I think would be.
Share now.
Well, the debris has, among other things, brick. Fire brick, depending on when it was manufactured, has asbestos in it.
Right.
As far as I know, they never tested any of the debris, the C&D, for asbestos. Probably wouldn't cost that much to have a licensed, DOL licensed inspector, if possible, to look at the things that we see in these photographs and collect some samples, because if they do come back as positive for asbestos,
It has to be removed.
that makes it hazardous, and that's really a game changer. As far as I know, they've never tested it.
It's already got 20, 30
If the town were
damages
going
done
to
now.
hire their own expert, what would that expert be expert in? Would it be a hydrogeologist or an engineer, or what would you suggest?
well, I
We
mean-
could afford one.
Well, in my view, there's two, I mean, to be a geologist, I think you're not ready for the hydro to come in yet. A geologist, like John Conrad, he's excellent. Number one. Number two, there's this whole geotechnical component of this, about, slouching into the stream, or, I mean, when we first went out there, it was caving in. So the heterogeneous nature of that stuff, it's gonna sag, and so a geotechnical engineer, if you're back doing test pits again, so they get to look at it profile.
So the first step, though,
So geologist is number one.
is the financial, protect the financial
Yep.
aspect.
Yep.
The next step is for the code enforcement officer to issue the violations. No.
You said he didn't issue a violation for there's no zoning violation, and there's a solid waste violation. What was the other one?
So there's a solid waste violation, which he did right. It was the violation of the zoning code that he did not write, which was, you're not allowed to have a land.
Right. But did he write a third violation that you mentioned?
Fill in
It
grade.
was the unstable slope.
So the financial, within the next 2 weeks, now when we approach the code enforcer, would that be to him directly with copies to the board?
Definitely to the board.
I
Or
actually,
directly
so
to
I
the
have a
board.
really hard opinion about that.
Go ahead.
Because of my interactions with the
I want to
code
hear your
officer.
opinion.
Go right to the town board.
Go right to the town
But
board.
I would write to him as well.
Yeah,
He does
would be-
not answer to the town board or to the supervisor. I haven't noticed that, that's what it was, code
Actually,
enforcement officer. And it
that
is
is true.
illegal for him to
Take
make
direction.
deals or take direction from the supervisor.
That's,
In
yes.
fact, you could go to the state and
Actually, somebody was
Bye-bye.
supposedly filed a complaint.
Okay, I wanted to,
Because-
okay, so we've got
So-
two, the code enforcement reissuing of the violations of the zoning, because we've already got the solid waste. And then the third would be recommendations for licensed, either geotechnical engineer, hydrologist, or geologist, and other recommendations, exciting that we think we believe after reading all the reports and then copy the reports, that there is continuous contamination.
Yeah, and I think that once you get the violation notices issued again, I don't see any reason why the town wouldn't save a hell of a lot of money by retaining John Conrad's firm.
it's kind of hard to do that though, isn't it?
And I don't know if there would be an ethical problem there or not.
But someone's got to look at filtration and how to deal with our current water problem.
Yeah.
No, I understand that, I'm just saying, you
That's-
can't go for a
that's a
specific
separate-
firm. That's what
Yeah,
I'm
there's
trying to say.
I think
Well,
that
actually,
we
I
could
guess you put
go,
out a request.
we could go with Urban Mead, for example, who is doing the Winston farm water testing. He's excellent, works for Labella, but that would be sort of a neutral person who hasn't already been involved. So I think that
Might make
would
sense.
have more credibility.
We have a
That's,
request for proposal.
yeah, we have to do that, but I do think that we want to
We
reach
reach out to
further.
3 or 4 people
Yeah.
that we have high respect for.
Okay, so
and be happy
that's
to-
part of the steps.
Correct.
Okay.
And then, if this comes out positive, we do have to go back to DEC with the fact that we would like the environmental group to come, possibly.
You can go back to that.
I think that it's just a safe thing to
Yeah.
try to do. I don't think that we might get anything from it, but I don't think it would hurt
It won't hurt.
to do that.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure, Joe and Ken, did you have any questions for Marcel? Or?
Right now. The only question I have is that you mentioned DDT, and that's been banned since, what, 1972?
Back in the 70s.
How'd
Yeah,
that get in?
you don't know.
New York City buildings.
This stuff was coming out of the city. It could be maybe somebody had a quart of DDT left over in the building that got demolished. and
Exactly.
it's You don't know where this stuff really
That is
come from.
incredible, isn't
I used to do demos in
I
New
didn't
York City
think about
on buildings for the city, and it was amazing the crap that was in there. And how many times we were like kicked out of the building for weeks because then they had to have,
that. Remediate, whatever.
Remediate.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Thank you,
John
Ken.
Conrad mentioned that
How
the
about you, Joe? Did you have
No,
any questions?
Gonna go home and read this.
It's interesting reading if you're into this kind of
So
thing.
Marcel, we have our homework. Is there anything else you feel is important for us to know before we go home and do our
I
homework?
think that pretty well covers it. Like I said before, any questions that I might be able to answer, more than happy to. If you have some questions, like, do you have anything that links this to that? I've got a lot more information.
I'm sure you
This
will.
is a fraction of what I have.
And this is important for the source protection program as well,
Yeah.
which is why Julie is back there and Ben is back there and Bob was here,
Yeah.
because. we're
Actually,
gonna-
I can give you a copy of
I
it.
would love one, okay.
I got it.
Come back.